especially the first half, until we conceded. We were well organized, created 2 fantastic opportunities, you know, and, you know, could have done better with those opportunities where we could have been 2-0 up before they scored. And at this level, when you make an error, it's in the back of the net. And that's what happened in this game. I think we sort of panicked a bit under pressure, didn't trust ourselves, didn't trust our ability, didn't trust our teammates' ability. And we say, we're a ball-playing team, so let's put the ball on the ground and play. And at times, we played through their press, and at times we panicked. So we need to be tactically disciplined and more consistent, because if we are not, that is when we get punished, you know.
I think, Coach, I would agree with you. And against Brazil, you look at the team conceding in critical phases of the match, because the whole 40 minutes, it was pound for pound, matched Brazil, closed down very critical areas, did not allow them that much time on the ball. But then in the last 5 minutes, we saw some woeful decision-making, if I could call it that, which brought Brazil pedigree and stature to the fold. Did the girls really learn from that?
I'm sure they did. You know, looking at it, we saw Banyana at WAFCON. You know, we saw the team at WAFCON, and we played under pressure. But as I said, this is a whole different level. You have players playing at Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Arsenal, etc. That's top players. And we always knew that they were going to test us. You know, speaking to Pia, she said she knew that we bowled from the back, and once we're in control of the ball, so she needed to stop that, but we needed to find ways to play out of that. And we did at times, but I don't think we trusted ourselves enough to consistently play out. And all we talk about is the consistency, and to stay tactically disciplined for the duration of the 90 minutes. And that is why I say the intensity in the leagues needs to be higher, because when you get to international football, the intensity is way higher, and then you've got to jump a couple of levels up, and that helps a lot, because when you do everything under pressure, everything under the same intensity, the jump is easier.
And did you get a chance to maybe get a look at your squad? Because I could see you changed the team for the second game also.
Look, we wanted to test other players. We wanted to make sure. That's why we had the two international friendlies. This was not just about the result, but it's also about testing other players, because we obviously want to see who we take along with us on our journey, who we say take a back seat, who we bring back in, etc. So how do we test others if we keep the same lineup all the time? So it was about giving others an opportunity as well to test them as well. And having 2 international friendlies, what a better way to test others. We didn't make too many changes, but we gave others an opportunity.
Coach, the 3 elements that came out of the entire Brazil tour for you, what were they? Because I want to believe as you take the friendlies, there's got to be a purpose in that, to say this friendly is going to contribute in this manner to our game. In this friendly, this is what we're going to get out of that game. What were the 3 components that stood out for you against Brazil?
We need to trust ourselves on the ball, first of all. We're a ball-playing team, and we're a team that plays from the back. And we need to consistently play that, and against higher level opposition, to make sure that when we get to the World Cup, if the opponent's lesser ranked than what we've played, we'll be able to cope and be able to match them. It doesn't make sense just to sit and play, because you're not going to go forward. When we're on the ball, to make better decisions, because at times we didn't make the best decisions. And the final third, there were times when I felt we should have played forward early. We did not. We played safe. And this is the time, and against teams like this, where we need to do that and to trust ourselves in that. And once the momentum is there and once the confidence is there, you regularly do it and you consistently do it. And we didn't do it consistently enough.
Yeah, but I think there were some positives, like the coach said. She did get to see her players, especially the depth that she has, because we know with the goalkeeper at WAFCON, it was one goalkeeper playing most of the games, and I think she got a chance to see what Kaylin can do. She's been on the bench for a while there in the national team, so it's going to be interesting to see how this team comes out today. And is it a different kind of opposition with Australia, coach, compared to Brazil?
Look, they're also a ball-playing country, similar to us, try to play the ball. They have a fantastic striker as well, well-organized as well. So it's a team that we have to break down, and a team that will maybe come at us again, considering that we're so lowly ranked. And looking at our previous game, they might try. They also press, but not as aggressively as Brazil. So maybe it will give us an opportunity to put the ball on the ground and play out, because we're not going to win by playing those long balls. And we have to stay true to who we are. And we have to consistently play this, so that by the time the World Cup comes along, we're ready. And we're not just then going from sitting back during our preparation and not preparing ourselves. And obviously giving other players an opportunity as well, because the door can never be closed.
Absolutely. And of course, Coach, the one thing that you've always said is that in terms of these international friendlies, it is an opportunity to rectify mistakes, but it's also an opportunity to look at players who are putting up their hands. And it was such a beautiful position that the Banyana Banyana team was placed in, because not only were the international friendlies taking place, we also had the COSAFA Women's Cup that was taking place. So what did you think of that, in terms of that tournament where the team was put together so quickly and still went through all the way to the final and walk away with that silver medal?
Well, I was privileged to watch the semi-final as well as the final, and I thought in such a short space of time, Coach Mpliwi really put a good team together, well organized, well structured. And when she needed the goal, she was always someone to put on, like Temba Sam, to come on and score the goal. I was very impressed with the younger players, Sanazo, for example, as well. Michelle Sampson really looked good as well. So I was really impressed with some of the players, yes.
And it was also so interesting to see the likes of Litemba Samsam, a player who is not plying their trade in the Hollywood Bets, come through to the COSAFA and just be such a prolific goal scorer.
Look, we've had players before that comes out of the Sasa League. Asanda Khadebe is one of them. Fiona played at Sunflower as well. So we've had players coming out of Sasol playing, because not everybody can play in the Hollywood Bet Super League. Sure. So there are definitely some good players out there in the Sasa League. And when we see these players, we also need to get them ready to be able to bring them into camp to give them an equal chance.
I think, Coach, to complement the fact that the conveyor belt is, you're looking at players that are playing at COSAFA, playing at Sasol, being looked at, which is very important. And you've always been a coach that says, I will reward on merit. And we're waiting to see the surprises today. We're waiting for the surprises today to see if that conveyor belt has given the nation what we're looking for, or almost say, that final product that will really get us all happy and say, I think we now have a quality team.
Look, it's made the core group bigger, most definitely, and we're always looking at making the core group bigger. And I've always said that if players raise their hands, they will get an opportunity. I've also said that as an individual, you select yourself. It's not just about your performance, it's about your attitude. It's about how you do at your club, because we are in contact with club coaches as well, which is very important to get feedback how the player is in their club, etc. Because it's the whole package for us. It's not just about the talent. For us, teamwork is the most important criteria, and it showed during WAFCON. If we were not united and if we were not a team, we would not have won that gold medal.
Yeah, and with what Gloria is saying, there's been a belief that maybe the squad is locked and players from outside can't come in. And maybe, Coach, do you find yourself at a crossroads considering the World Cup is a few months away? Do you keep the core of the squad, or do you try and bring in new players now? Is that a difficult decision, or you think you've planned properly for that?
Look, you can never close the door. The door can never be closed, because I remember in 2019 as well, Sibulele and Karabu, were part of the group and came in, and did really well. They'd done so well at the Under-17 World Cup that we brought them in after. And I remember it was just a few months, so we can never, ever close the door, because there are players that's going to raise their hand. And nobody, as I said before, nobody has the spot at the World Cup yet. And you've got to make sure that you get the right mix. You've got to make sure, like we did at WAFCON, we got a group together that was so versatile that you could look back. I mean, we had an injury with Tembi. I think the country went into mourning, but Jermaine stepped up. Yes. We had some COVID cases. Everybody else stepped up, and because we had that versatility and that multifunctional players in our group, it didn't affect us that much. We just needed to manage the load, etc. We wanted to do something similar, because in 2015, and compared to 2019, the difference between the two World Cups was not the distance covered. It was very minimal. The difference was the intensity and the speed of the game.
Overall?
Overall. Especially the last 4 and 5 zones, which is 18 plus kilometers per hour. And the strangest thing is, when you look at the positions where that intensity improved the most, it was the wide players. And second, most of all, was the central defenders. And you would think not. But then again, you're playing up against quick strikers. So the intensity there, the fullbacks obviously very little, because they already had a big margin. It's the same for the strikers. So the game has become quicker. So we need to get a very versatile, multifunctional squad together. And we cannot close the door so early. to players not, players coming back from injury, players maybe being off form, players that you had your eye on. We never forget about players. They're sometimes not at the front, sometimes they're at the back. So we never forget about them. There's some players that Busi Siwe and Mary, perfect example.
Yeah.
Coach
Yeah.
Vera.
Yeah.
Coach Vera, she was there, got injured 2014, got injured 2015. And I remember just before WAFCON, you had a player withdraw, and there was this one game, Super Falcons against TUT. And we went to watch because we needed to replace the player. And I watched TUT most probably, I don't know how many times during that season. And they played her in a position where we felt she could add value to the team. She eventually went to the World Cup, so you cannot close the door.
Absolutely. And maybe just as we are chatting about the COSAFA, if you just look at the countries that took part in that tournament, how would you assess the quality that that Banyana Banyana squad was taking on?
Look, I have to admit, when you look at Angola, when we played Angola, there were a lot of changes, in the team. But then again, you play what's in front of you. Malawi maybe didn't look as fit as they should have, but you also play who's in front of you. But I think the game that stood out was the final game. We knew we couldn't go pound for pound against Zambia, but we defended so well and had an opportunity to score early on, not once but twice.
Absolutely.
And that is the centimeters or the seconds, that small window where you need to take that opportunity, because the bigger and the better teams just need one chance and they put it away.
And those are the similarities, even with the Banyana squad that was taking on Brazil, because especially in that match that was played at the Orlando Stadium, there were moments, clear moments in that first half when Banyana could have finished. So I guess maybe one of the big problems is maybe the finishing in terms of the squad?
I think it's the biggest problem at the moment, because it has shown it doesn't matter who we play against. We're going to create, but it's not just about working in camp because we have so little time. It's about going back and working on your finishing, and working on your finishing under pressure, because at the higher level, it's all under pressure. You sometimes don't even get a touch. You need to put the ball away almost immediately. So, players need to go back. We've spoken to coaches, asked them to assist us to work on that as well, because we are a team that's going to create, and we need to be a little bit more clinical in front of goal to be able to, play against these teams. You looked in the first game, we had 2 opportunities before they scored. Hilda had opportunity. When I spoke to her, she said she should have maybe taken it earlier. After having looked at it, I think Notolo had opportunity. If she'd taken an extra touch, maybe could have gotten it over the goalkeeper. Then we're talking something different here. But that is those small decision-making in that small space of time that you need to change. And when they got an opportunity, we make a mistake. And they pounced on all our mistakes, and that's the quality of top teams like this.
And in addition to the finishing, it's the defensive organization. I mean, in this encounter, conceding as early as the 4th minute, that first goal, and of course losing 6-0, absolutely worrying.
Look, we're not a 6-0 team, but if you're going to make errors like that, the team is just going to grab it and say thank you. So a lot of it was individual errors more than anything. Because it's also a little bit of decision-making, not making the right decision, not covering each other, etc. And compared to WAFCON, it was a total turnaround, but this happens when you're under this immense pressure. You got to think quicker, you got to make decisions quicker, and you got to make sure that, you trust your teammate and yourself on the ball, and at times we didn't.
I think, Coach, when you look at your defensive structure and you look at your goalkeepers over the years, we've had Dlamini, we've had Kaylin Swart. Are they pushing each other enough in the squad for one to look at and say, a Regal who has put a hand up week in and week out, Hollywood Bets, I was expecting, I'm sure a few others, to see her in the Brazil game. We didn't get to see her, and instead Kaylin Swart coming in. Is there anything that one can look at and say, with Regal, the difference? Can't you really push it, Dlamini? Is she our number 2? Is she, how would you look at those three goalkeepers, maybe even 4, and say, where are we going to in that particular area?
Look, we have a fantastic group of goalkeepers. I remember in 2018, Kaylin played all the matches, and it's very difficult to change goalkeepers throughout the tournament because you need that consistency as well. In 2019 now it was Andile, and I think the whole group, if you look at the quality that Andile showed, it's because the rest were pushing. It wasn't just one goalkeeper, the rest were pushing. And we always were going to give Kaylin an opportunity, and obviously if we got a second game this time around, Grigor was going to play the second game. But unfortunately we didn't get that second game, we only got the first game, and that's why we give players an opportunity.
All right, so we do understand that this friendly is going to be played in London. It would have been so ideal for it to be played in Australia because that's exactly where the World Cup will be taking place. Why are we playing in London?
Australia wanted to play in London because they have another friendly out in Denmark, which is close to logistically for them to travel, and we accepted the friendly.
All right, well, the Matildas of Australia are going to be taking on Banyana Banyana of South Africa on the 8th of October in London. That international friendly has been confirmed. And of course, it is with regards to the preparations for next year's FIFA Women's World Cup, where it will be hosted by New Zealand and Australia. The first time in the history of the FIFA Women's World Cup where you have got 2 host nations. And of course, the very first time that you've got 32 teams that are going to be taking part in this tournament. Let's take a quick ad break. When we do return, questions are going to be posed. As you can see there in your pictures, journalists are here in the SABC Sport studios ready to pose those critical questions. And of course, the much anticipated squad announcement. Don't move.
The love we have for the game is undoubtedly part of our heritage. This Saturday, 24 September, SABC Sports celebrates Heritage Day as it marks our nation's diverse culture and heritage. Catch the international friendly between Bafana Bafana and Leone Stars of Sierra Leone on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations at 2:30 p.m. Then, at 3 p.m., it's time for the Bulls World Sports Betting Carlton League Final. ABE Midas Naka Bulls versus Betway Centurion on SABC Sport on DTT, OpenView 124, and also available on Telkom 1. The Heritage Day sporting action, proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Lights out, W Series is underway. Oh, that's it! Jamie Chadwick's been hit! Oh, look at this! There's a change in the lead! And there's the move.
Head down and get up to the car in front.
Brilliant victory in the wet for Emma Kimmerleinen. Alice Powell gets through to give her the championship lead. Jamie Chadwick retains her crown in some style. This is W Series.
SABC Sport is bringing boxing back. Tune in for all the hard-hitting action, spectacular venues, and thrilling entertainment. It's all the boxing you need as the heavyweights go bout for bout and pound for pound. When the bell rings, it's all about the jabs and hooks, world-class commentary and coverage from all angles. Be sure to be part of the thrilling action as we bring you the best of the best. We're bringing you all the fighting and all the excitement. Catch all the action on SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
We are just moments away from finding out which of the 23 players will be representing Banyana Banyana when they take on Australia in an international match, friendly match that will be taking place in London on the 8th of October. Now, we do know that Australia have previously appeared at the World Cup on 7 occasions. They're taking on a Banyana Banyana squad that has only appeared once, but of course next year will be their second appearance. So it really is touted as a mouth-watering clash. I still have Coach Des here, who's going to be making that important announcement. And of course, Gloria Brown, Thabiso Mosia are still here. How much of a beautiful headache did you have putting together the squad?
It's always a headache because there's so many players putting up their hands, and you want to make sure that you get the right mix. You want to make sure that you get the versatility. You want to make sure that you get the group together that will give you the result that you want, but not just the result, about the performance as well. And obviously, you're always looking at improved performances, but it's always a headache. And as a coach, you want that headache.
Now, after this, there are going to be questions about why this one, why not that one, why? So maybe let's start with the announcement, because after this, a lot of questions are going to be asked about the team, and then maybe you can also give us an explanation as to why those 23. Coach, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We start with the goalkeepers. Ndili Dlamini, Regal Ngobeni, Denayo Magagula. Then we start with the defenders. Tato Letsoso, Fikili Magama, Tisetso Makubela, Lonatemba Mhlongu, Simone Souls, Bambanani Mbani, and Bongeka Gamede. We go to the midfielders. Cynthia Makete, Rafil Wejane, Sibulele Howeni, Linda Mutlalo, Thalia Smith, Robin Moodley, and Amohalang Mutau. We go to the strikers. Ntabiseng Magia, Tubilitle Shamase, Gabriela Salgado, Jermaine Sioposenwe, Melinda Khadete, and Hilda Magaya.
Whew. That is the squad, ladies and gentlemen, the 23 Banyana Banyana players who are going to be taking on Australia, a formidable opposition, and of course that match taking place in London. We have to then do that quick recap in terms of the goalkeepers that have been announced. Andile Dlamini of Mamelodi Sundowns, Regal Ngobeni of UWC, and Dineo Magagula, who plays for UJ. In terms of the defenders, Tato Letsoso of TUT, Fikile Makama's UWC, Tisetso Makubela, who plays for Mamelodi Sundowns, and Lonatemba Mhlongo, who plays for UWC. The other two defenders, Simone Souls of JVW and Bambanani Mbani of Mamelodi Sundowns. And in terms of that midfield, Bloemfontein Celtics, Cynthia Makete, and of course we've got Rafila Jane, who plays for Sassuolo, and Sibulele Holweni, who plays for UWC, Linda Mutlalo of Jagardens, and Taylor Smith, who also plays for Mamelodi Sundowns, Robin Moodley of JVW, and of course Amohelang Mutau of UWC. In terms of the forwards there, Thabiseng Magia, Richmond United, Tubelihle Shamase, who plays for UJ, Gabriela Salgado, back of JVW, Jermaine Sioposenwe of Juarez, and Melinda Khadiete of Mamelodi Sundowns. Rounding things up is Hilda Magaya, who plays for Sejong. So those are the 23 players that have been selected, and I have a look there, and I think our most capped player, Janine van Wyk, does not make the cut this time around. And the reason behind that, Coach?
She's not the only one. Kaylin Swat doesn't make it this time around. Lebogang Ramalepi doesn't make it. Janine van Wyk doesn't make it. Kalosa Bayana doesn't make it. Nombula Haule doesn't make it. Noko is not available. Her residence permit is not sorted. Nokolo, also visa issues. They all don't make it.
Yeah. Look, I'm not surprised though. when you look at the squad that has been announced. We're really reinforcing a younger generation speed. We've been complaining about defensively, if I go from the defensive line, we've been complaining about the lackluster performances, the slowness in the defense, and so forth. But I'm more impressed with the youngsters that have come in that are showing great pedigree from the COSAFA, particularly Letsotso Magama. For me, in that defense, come in and bring something new, and will be marshaled by the experience of Mbane and Gamede again. So Janine, yes, it may not be the end of the road and so on, but I think it is an opportunity to see what else we can do without those particular players. And it is important for us to accept that Australia is a different cup of tea. We know the capabilities of Janine. Can we continue to see something new and what they can bring into the side, that is defensively?
Look, the door is never closed to anyone. And as I said, we're having a look at players all the time. We need to make sure that we get the mix right. And some of the players have raised their hand and they're getting the opportunity. The players that are not here, the door's not closed. It can never be closed. But it's just also an opportunity to look at us.
Yes, and looking at others, it's good to see the likes of Fikile in the team. I mean, they call a roadblock, actually, very solid as a fullback. And what's quite interesting with the new players is also that some of these young players have been with the junior national teams, they've been with the under-17s, they've been to the World Cup in 2018 in Uruguay under coach Simpiwe Dludlu. So you can see there is a bit of consistency there, and the processes are working between the senior team and the junior national teams. And I was wondering earlier on, I was saying to the coach, maybe the squad is locked, but it looks like she's rewarded form also. Fikile had a good COSAFA Cup also. Dineo had a very good COSAFA Cup, didn't concede probably until the final in extra time there. She kept Barbara Banda at bay a lot during that game. She didn't play in the other game that they conceded in the week. I think Victoria started in that game where they conceded. So it's really good to see the consistency and the young players coming through. But also, coach, with the likes of Kolosa and Nomvula, maybe the fact that they don't have teams, is that what's worked against them here?
Most definitely, you know, we spoke previously in the previous announcement about them being unattached, and it was so soon after WAFCON to include them. But going forward, we spoke about how do you justify selecting someone that's unattached when they're not playing regularly. So, yeah, that's the reason why those two are not there.
One would look at it and say Ramalepe has been one of the players I observed throughout the WAFCON who was the players that got the yellow card, I think, dented the disciplinary record of the South African team. But that aside, she's one of the players that kind of always is first on your list, and this time we don't see her in the lineup.
Look, you've got a reward for Fikile Magama as well. We know what Lebogang Ramalepe can do, but Fikile was excellent, especially in the final against Barbara Banda, against Mapepe. And Mapepe was really good at WAFCON, and you've got to reward that as well. And test her now at a higher level to see, does she go with us or doesn't she go with us? We know what Ramalepe can do, so it's just having a look at other players as well.
She was player of the match against Namibia in the semi-finals. But a lot's been said about where Rama is playing, coach. Is that a factor to you when it comes to squad selection?
Look, you know, players very important as well. A lot of them play abroad, but some of them don't play in top leagues. And unfortunately, you know, it sometimes shows in the performances when you don't play in the top league, because when you play in the better leagues and at the better clubs, you are tested all the time. Look at the improvement in Noko. Noko was playing in the Hollywood Bet Super League, and Noko went abroad, and Noko's a different player completely, playing at this high level, you know, and that for me says if you play at the high level, the performance improves. And Noko has shown it. I think at the WAFCON, I think she was unlucky not to make that 11 players, top players of the finalist.
A lot of consideration also has been made in terms of the players that were in the COSAFA Cup tournament. So a lot of people will then ask, in terms of one of the highest goal scorers in that tournament, Ulithemba Samsam, did she not maybe make such an impression on you to the extent of her being included in the squad?
Look, I thought she was really good, but I thought this might be too early for her. You look at the players that we have in those positions, seasoned campaigners doing really well at the moment, but definitely I have an eye on her, you know, because she really knows where the goal is. Also her positioning as a striker, she knows the position, and maybe get her to a better level to then bring her in to give her a better opportunity.
Knox is missing in the midfield.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, she can leave the country, but she can't come back in at the moment.
Sadly.
So
Like
that is
Jermaine the last time.
yes. So that is the sad part about it. You know, and when you look at other countries that have gone to competitions, I think the last time Nigeria played the US, they also had problems with visas, and it's very challenging sometimes to get visas for all the players when they're not in South Africa.
And with a few players returning from injury, you happy with where Gabby is, Sibulele is?
I think Gabby's really gone back and scored goals immediately. Sibulele scored a goal again yesterday. We know their quality and they add so much to the team. We miss Gabby at WAFCON for the versatility, but others stood up again in that competition. So yes, we were always going to have a look at her again because of the quality that she brings. The same with Sibulele.
Sure. Is it fair to say the exclusion of Kaylin Swart was somehow attributed to what happened in those international friendlies, especially that second one at Moses Mabhida where she conceded those 6 goals?
Look, yes and no. Yes and no. You cannot forgive, you know, a performance like that with all due respect. She's a quality goalkeeper. She's showed her quality in the past. But we also know we've got a goalkeeper, Katlego, who was part of us as well, who was at the COSAFA. We've got Deneo now. We're always trying to make the goalkeeping group bigger because good quality goalkeepers, there's many shot stoppers in the league. But there's not quality good all-round goalkeepers. So we also want to make the pool bigger. It's not the first time Deneo comes to our camp. As I said, we don't forget she's been to our camp before. Now we're having another look at it to see do we add her to our pool of goalkeepers or not.
Very interesting. Well, we do have lots of questions here in terms of the panelists, but of course we do have journalists that have also joined us here in our SABC Sports studios for the special broadcast of the Banyana Banyana squad announcement. I know that we do have a couple of journalists already who are ready to pose their questions to Coach Des. So who do we then start with in terms of that? I know that Chad has got a question there for Coach Des Reelis.
Yeah, hi Coach. I know you've touched a lot on some of the missions and a bit of the new faces, but just looking at the schedule, I think there's 4 more international windows before the World Cup. In this particular window, you play Australia, who then go on to play Denmark after that. What is the plan after this Australia game? Because you obviously haven't secured a second opponent as well.
Look, Chad, we wanted to secure a second opponent, but unfortunately, especially in Europe, there's a lot of playoffs around about the same time, and we couldn't get an opponent at that time. And then now the draw is in October. We've already given a plan of who we want to play. So we're obviously waiting for the draw to see is that team that we wanted to play in our group or not. Only then can we go back and relook at the plan to see who we want to play. There's also the Cyprus Cups coming up, the Tournoi de France, the Algarve Cup, and all of those competitions in February where you get to play more than 2 games.
All right, so the window is open for a second opponent, definitely.
No, for this match, definitely not.
So that is completely closed off.
We couldn't get one. We couldn't get one, especially in Europe, with a lot of the European teams playing around about that time as well.
And it's such a pity because we do know that Australia, after taking on Banyana Banyana, will be taking on Denmark. So, of course, they've secured that second opposition. And just in terms of our journalists, thank you so much to Chad for that question. Do we have just one more that wants to go through to Coach Des Reelis?
Thanks, Coach. Congratulations on the squad. What sort of lesson did you draw from the Brazil losses? And when you announced this squad or selected it, did you look at some of the things that could align with the friendly with Australia? It could be a possibility that you could play them in the actual World Cup, and that could really help in terms of preparing the team. You would know what to expect when you play them in their backyard there.
Look, we tried to bring in similar type of players because of the way we want to play as well. We obviously looked at the game of Brazil where we made these uncharacteristic, unforced errors, and bringing in somebody like Fikile Magama, Tatu Lotsoso, Simone Souls, who especially in the final really stood out and were very solid in defense. Now it's to test them at a higher level. We've been watching Maketa at Bloemfontein Celtic, playing really, really well there as well. With Nokolo not being available, another wide player comes in, so it's almost like for like. because we can't change the way we play. You know, we're not a long ball type of team. We want to stay true to who we are, and we want to make sure that the players that come in can give us maybe more or something similar. And now the opportunity is being given to them, and it's up to them now to raise their hands.
And just on that question of Charles, Coach, is maybe the defense maybe a bit of a concern for you because most of the changes are in the defense? And you mentioned Simone. I've seen her play for JVW's under-20s as a centre-back. I've seen her play as a full-back. Where do you see her fitting in also?
Look, she's played full-back most of the time, even in our training when we were preparing for WAFCON, full-back and wing. That's where she's played. Tisetso has been part of our camp before. She was on standby for the WAFCON. We see her playing at Mamelodi Sundowns. Want to have a look at her again. Adds a lot of strength as well as a little bit of pace as well. And a long range of passing is really good as well. So that's the reason why we wanted to have a look at players that can add a bit more to the team, because we've got to be better defensively before we can even think of anything else.
Thabisa, I also do know that you are aware already of the Australian team that is going to be taking part in terms of this international friendly against Banyana. When you look at the squad that coach has selected, how do they fare compared to those 23?
Well, Australia have a bit more experience. They've actually put out their squad, I think, 2 days ago, the Matildas, as you call them. They played Canada recently, and they've got 21 of those players that are in that group that played against Canada. So you can see for Coach Tony, it's all about continuity leading up to the World Cup. But also, they only have 2 home-based players in their squad. Most of them play in England, actually, thanks to SABC. We've seen the FA Women's Super League, so we've seen the likes of Sam Kerr, who plays at Chelsea. I think she scored against West Ham also. They're playing at a home ground this match against Australia. We've seen Caitlin Ford at Arsenal also, who's played there, at Steph Catley also at Arsenal, and there are players at Man City also, Hayley Russo, the likes of Hayley Russo. So we've seen a bit of the squad of Australia, and they've got a lot of experience. They've got the goalkeeper who's at PSG. She didn't come off the bench in those Champions League matches in midweek though. So they've got a lot of experience in Australia, some players in Denmark, some players in Norway. So it's a very strong team that they have here, and it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a great test actually for our young players that have been brought into this team by Coach Des.
Adding to that, we haven't done very well against European opposition, and bringing in what I would call a little bit of a young, inexperienced defensive duo, and we're talking about Kerr, we're talking about Caitlin, and these are players that are at 100 caps plus, 50 caps plus. That is the Australian side. And when we talk of continuity, and that team, you could probably say 900 plus caps amongst those players. And here they come against this team, young team of ours that we are nurturing. Coach, striking, our strike force, I believe we're still lacking a finisher. We're seeing players that like to walk the ball in the back of the net, small passes and so forth. Have we not yet been able to find that player that is the go-to kind of, because without a Thembi Kgatlana, it kind of does look bleak up front, but yes, Jermaine Sipisingo showing good signs of consistency and continuing to score up front, Coach?
Well, Hilda's played up front for us as well. Hilda was the top goal scorer at the SAFA Cup as well. Has shown that she can score goals at this level. Jermaine has shown that she can score goals at this level. I mean, she just scored 2 beauties for a club recently, so out of the box type of thing.
8-second goals.
Yeah, very, very, very quick goals. And Thabiseng Magia has shown that she's a quality goal scorer. Melinda sometimes plays up top for us, but also plays just off. Very creative as well. Has shown that she can score goals. The same with Gabriela Salgado. The same with Tubiletle, and the sister is normally the supplier. So there's a lot of players, but we need to be more clinical at a higher level. We've shown we can score. Now we need to take that step up. And in games against the top nations, you sometimes don't have that second or that third touch. And that's why we urge the strikers to go out and work, not just in camp, but off camp as well, because that is what matters most, is that work that you do behind the scenes that then gives you the rewards when you come into the team.
Thabiseng Majia's technical ability, striking of the ball, revelation. We haven't seen much of her in a Banyana shirt. Is this the time that we'll get to see an unleashed, rejuvenated Thabiseng Magia?
Look, she's very young, 18. We're trying to bring her in slowly to make sure that she gets a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there, and getting her ready for that position. And it will take a little bit of time because we feel that she's going to be a superstar. If you read a story, coming straight from regional league, going straight to Hollywood Bets League and doing fantastically well. And with a team that doesn't have the quality that the other teams have and still scoring regularly. But then it needs to take that step up. And at WAFCON, I think she was fantastic. So it's not taking that different level up, and hopefully being in camp all the time and working behind the scenes, we can get it to that level.
But how do you deal with that pressure, Coach, of Ntabiseng? Because she's got a lot of fans. I mean, even at WAFCON, came off the bench, she scored there, and people thought you'll start her the next game or you'll give her a chance. How do you deal with that and managing her with the plan that you have for her?
Well, if you have someone like Jermaine, you know, then you've got to start Jermaine ahead of her. Unfortunately, Jermaine has showed she doesn't only score, but she also creates goals. And the difference that she brings is the mentality, but also the know-how and the knowledge of oppositional play. And that is one thing Ntabiseng is getting better at. And we're always telling her to watch what Jermaine does, to watch what Tembi does, to watch what Hilda does in terms of everything. And she's going to be a superstar, believe you me.
Coach, Jermaine Sipasingwe was at one stage the hothead, if I could put it that way, in layman's terms, in the Banyana shirt. But here she is rejuvenated. What has been the secret behind the Jermaine that we're seeing now and the Jermaine that we've known over the years?
I think Jermaine has always been a very strong-willed person, mentally very strong, a winner, hates losing. I think she's matured also playing abroad. She's matured a lot as a player. And you can see it in her performance, a maturity in the play, a maturity in everything. And like everyone else, as we get older, we also mature and we learn from things. But Jermaine has always been a team player. I think people find it difficult to handle her, but we've never had any challenges or anything because we've got to manage. If you take that aggression away from Jermaine, you take the best part of her away.
And I mean, it's so good also to see Sibulele Holweni, you know, after that injury in the WAFCON, you know, and of course yesterday when UWC was playing against First Touch, that 1-1 draw, she scoring in that game, you know. Are you happy with where she is right now and how she's going to be integrated back into the team?
She actually played as a striker yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
She played as a striker yesterday, and I think one of our most versatile players, a top footballer. She's been part of the team for a while. I think the Mamelodi Sundowns game was a bit too early with the high intensity of the match, but she'd been training with him for 3 weeks, and you know, she got some game time against JBW. I was in Cape Town on a little bit of a holiday, and I watched that game, and obviously she started yesterday, so really happy that she's back in the game again. And we look forward not just to her, but Gabby as well.
The return of Salgado.
And she's part of that group in 2018 that went to the World Cup with the under-17s, right?
Yes.
With the likes of Figi, I think Lona Karabo, also
Yes.
part of that coach with Coach Simpiwe Dludlu.
Tubelihle as well.
Tubelihle also, the
Yes.
Shamasas,
Yes.
yeah? They'll be reunited here. So isn't she due for an overseas move, those Sawawa, Coach?
I think so, yes. I think maybe an injury put that back. You know, but I definitely think so. You look at how well she's done in the league, and we always say, you know, maybe she's outgrown the league and needs to get a better challenge, you know.
And of course, we know in terms of the World Cup draw for next year's FIFA Women's World Cup, it will be staged on the 22nd of October in Auckland. 32 teams. They are going to be divided into 8 groups of 4. And just in terms of that, you know, it is the preparations that are, of course, going to be taking place. That international friendly, it is going to be so exciting. Australia, who are ranked 12th in the world, taking on a Banyana Banyana side who are ranked 54th. That match is going to be taking place on the 8th of October at 1:30. And of course, SABC1 and all the SABC radio stations and our DTT channels are going to be showing that international friendly. The squad has been confirmed. We know which of the 23 players are going to be representing the Banyana Banyana team. And it's all smiles from you, Gloria.
Yes, it is. It is. It's exciting times as usual. I mean, for women's football, which is on the rise, it's time to really smile and celebrate. But at the same time, Karabo Dlamini, it's been something worrying me for some time,
World
Coach.
Cup star.
World Cup
I
superstar.
actually forgot about her. She's in a final semester for the year. And you also want to make sure that they do well at school. That's the reason we actually had to send her back after the first Brazil game, because she needed to start school on Monday. Asanda Adebe is not there as well, in matric, and unfortunately schoolwork is also important. We have to make sure that we also prepare them for life after football. So we knew that she wasn't going to be available, but was available for the Brazil game, and we have to make sure she's in matric, and we've got to help her as much as we can.
And Asanda, you've mentioned she was part of that squad for the Brazil. You also called up Lorna for that squad for the Brazil. How has her progress been?
I think after the injury she picked up, just before we had announced the WAFCON squad, she picked up an injury and we had to send her home. I think she's growing as a centre-back. Many people know her as a striker.
Yes.
But I think at the World Cup with Coach Mpiwe Dludlu, she played as a centre-back and really showed some good form, especially when I watched them play Sundowns in Cape Town. Was really solid at the back, and it's been solid as well. So hopefully we're looking at giving her some game time to see during the training sessions how she improved to be able to get some game time. It all happens in the training session, Tabiso, to make sure who we select. And sometimes on match day -1, we already have our lineup in our minds, but then somebody raises their hand.
Coach, realistic ambitions for the World Cup. Where do we see us?
Look, we're not going to be naive, but we're also going to try to be ambitious. I felt we didn't play as well as we could have during the World Cup. I felt the first game was the most important game for us to set the tone for the rest of the tournament. Up until they scored, we were just about to change the formation, and then they scored, and then we had one player down, and then we were always chasing the game. But it will be a dream come true if we can get out of the group stages. And we're not trying to be arrogant in any way, but we've got to do better than what we did the last time.
Oh, that would really be great. And just in terms of that, you know, piggybacking on that question, how are you going to be gauging success in terms of this international friendly? Because it's such a pity that there isn't going to be a second opposition, so you can't change the players around a bit. But what for you is going to give you the big tick when you play Australia?
It's not just the result, but it's the improved performance to make sure that we minimize our mistakes, because that has been our downfall this past couple of games, even at WAFCON. Every time we made a mistake, there was a goal. To minimize our mistakes, to be a little bit more defensively organized, but also to play to our strengths. And then when we get into the final third, to make sure that we get more shots on target to be able to have a chance of scoring goals, because you cannot score if you don't get shots on target. And be brave when we're going forward to play those passes when players are in the position to get behind the defense. So we're looking at all of those and obviously a better result.
And is this the kind of opposition, because Chad mentioned that there are 4 windows coming up before the World Cup, is this the kind of opposition that you're looking for leading up to that, coach? Or, because we know how South Africans are, I mean, you lose by a big score, then the hopes go down. Are you going to look at matches maybe to restore some confidence or try not to shatter the confidence? How do you look at it?
Look, we have teams that are ranked a little bit closer to us as well in our plan, obviously, but we want also with getting Brazil so early and getting Australia so early, it already gives us an opportunity of what we need to work on. We could have played all the lesser-known teams early, but not been challenged too much. And then we get closer to the World Cup, and we play these top teams, and we've got no time to work on. We've got no time to see what we still need to work on. So we're looking at slowly building. Brazil was number 9, Australia's number 12, so we're looking at building that way as well.
And I guess it will also be good to see after that World Cup draw in terms of who we are paired up with to see which other oppositions you could then tackle.
No, most definitely. Like I said, we have a plan, but it all depends on the draw. Maybe we have someone in our plan who's going to be in our group. Yeah. We have to then change, but if not, we're looking at playing similar opposition to what will be in our group.
Whew. This is definitely going to be a very interesting encounter. The Matildas of Australia, they are ranked 12th globally and of course have appeared 7 times at the World Cup. They are going to be taking on the African champions, and that is Banyana Banyana. That match is taking place on the 8th of October. It is going to be played in London, so it is not definitely Australia, but of course edging closer and closer to that World Cup draw that will be taking place on the 22nd 2nd of October in Auckland. It really is going to be an interesting one. Both of those teams are getting ready for that global showpiece that will be co-hosted by New Zealand and, of course, Australia. Thabiso, looking at this 23, are you happy with how the coach has assembled the players?
Yes, I am, because I think the coach has been honest. I think the coach has been fair also. I think the coach has also avoided being emotional, because it's easy to go with emotions here and trust the soldiers that did duty for you the last time. But she's explained why some players like Kolosa and Nomvula are not yet. They don't have clubs. They're not attached to clubs, so you can't justify that, and they've been inactive for some time. But also we saw the coach at Kosafa. She was there in the stands watching the games, and you can see by the players that she's picked here that she's been watching the games and she's rewarding form. But she's also identified the areas where she thinks she needs to improve, and I also think she is looking ahead, looking at the age, trying to find the right balance here in the squad. So I think it's an honest squad. I think it's a fair squad. I mean, she's kept a lot of the experience and a lot of the players that have served the nation very well. Nokola would have been here. She got a move to France after WAFCON, and you see what success does for you. We saw it in 2019 also after the team played at the World Cup. A lot of the players moved overseas. So it also shows that the door is not closed on anybody, whether you're playing Sasol, whether you're playing in the Hollywood Super League, or whether you're playing overseas. It also doesn't mean that if you're playing overseas, you are guaranteed to be in this team. You know, you still have to be in the right league. You still have to perform and contribute for your team. So I think it's a fairly balanced a squad that the coach has been picked here, and I think she's followed the processes. She's also not panicked a lot here. So I don't think there should be any complaints here.
And before I come to Gloria with the same questions, so Thabiso, what should be our realistic expectations when we take on Australia in just a few days?
I think performance, like the coach said, is very key. I think playing without fear also. Sometimes you do sense sometimes that maybe there's a bit of fear. They look at the position. We saw the game against the Netherlands and they think, no, there's no way we can beat these ones. I think they have to believe in themselves. And it's a bit tougher this time around because they've got a target on their back. They are champions of Africa. And that's who everybody wants to play and that's who everybody wants to beat. So they also need to believe in themselves and just believe in what's got them this far and make sure that they just play to what the coach wants. Don't forget the bigger picture is the World Cup. So there's no need to press panic buttons at this stage. There's still a couple of months before the World Cup, even though there were heavy defeats against Brazil. But there's a lot that the coach is taking out, and you can see in the squad that she's picked for the game against Australia.
Gloria, bold changes that have been made in some of those positions. What's your take in terms of this final 23?
Very realistic approach to what we have at present, to the situations that are before us, in terms of the players that you want to choose and the ones that have come back from injuries. Good to see that, to say you want to have a look at players who had injured themselves, like Tisetso Makubela, Sibulelo Holweni. It's good to see Gabriela Salgado back. So the way Thabiso's summarized it, I agree 100%, the honesty around it. I still would have maybe wanted to see a left-footed player to give balance on the left side, maybe a Vilagazi, but that's fine because you also got to look at the players that are put in the position to say how well can they do. There's still time to go forward. And again, looking at Australia, we need to get the monkey off our back. We need to start getting the results, not only against, if you're looking at the lowly ranked countries, but the players have got to show their mettle. We spoke about versatility, and we need to see exactly that. You know, we got to also see that we are a multifunctional team, you know, and it's really interesting times because there's still a way to go forward. There's still spaces up for grabs. There's still opportunities to be looked at, and I think the positivity out there, Saul's young player, being complimented, being rewarded for her exceptional work is in the lineup. So that gives you belief wherever you are.
Des, the minute Gloria spoke about Vilagazi, one could see that thought just go past you. What were your thoughts on that?
Look, also she's injured at the moment, but we have enough cover in that position. And I always look at the cover. I always look what the player that covers can add more to the team. And Gloria's mentioned one word, versatility. And we have a lot of that. I mean, Fakili Magama has played both left and right back for the U17s. The same for UWC. Simone Souls has. Sibulele has played there. Bongeka has played both left and right back. and can play other positions. And when you have a lot of that versatility and you have players that are in form, you go with the form and the versatility.
It's all about form. It's all about versatility. As Banyana Banyana take on Australia, it is going to be a mouth-watering encounter for the very first time in the history of the Australian women's national team. They have never played an African opposition outside of the World Cup, outside of the Olympic Games. So it just shows the pedigree of Banyana Banyana and the reason why they want to take on the African champions. Of course, in terms of Australia coming into this encounter on the back of those two successive defeats against Canada, and in terms of Banyana Banyana suffering that 9-0 aggregate loss against the 8-time Copa America winners, that was Brazil. So in terms of this encounter, it's about making sure that there is an improved performance, hopefully a victory also that will come the way of South Africa. I do have to thank Tabiso Masia, Mr. Stats and Facts, for making time. Creme de la creme of SABC Sport Analysis, Gloria Brown, for also sharing those important insights in terms of our journalists that came through to the SABC Sport studios. And how can we never forget the Banyana Banyana head coach, 3 times CAF Women's Coach of the Year, Desiree Ellis. All the best when you take on the Matildas of Australia. To the team upstairs and downstairs, you've been stellar. Have yourself a lovely day.